Good evening. I'm John Wensky, Chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee, and welcome to our meeting for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on Cellco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connection's website. Thank you to Shrewsbury Media Connection and Liz Poplowski for their assistance with this broadcast. Tonight's meeting will be rebroadcast on SMC's website and their YouTube channel between now and our next scheduled meeting on Wednesday, April 30th. Before we start tonight's meeting, we'd like to recognize the passing of Greg Honorato, the town of Shrewsbury's IT director, a friend and colleague to many in the school district. Greg began his professional career in 2004 with the Shrewsbury School Department IT Group, where he worked for 8 years before joining Cellco in 2012. His deep knowledge of technology and networking enabled him to rise the ranks of Cellco's cable division and ultimately take the helm of Shrewsbury's IT department. Over the past 4 years as IT director, Greg transformed the department, building a world-class team and implementing new technology solutions and bolstering cybersecurity. Greg had a lifelong connection to Shrewsbury, both personally and professionally, leading to numerous colleagues and friendships. Growing up here, graduating from Shrewsbury High School in 2000, and eventually buying his own home in town, Greg was an expert on all things Shrewsbury and always had a story to share. Greg had significant impact on countless people and will be greatly missed, especially by his Shrewsbury Public Schools IT colleagues within our schools. Please join us in a moment of silence in honor of Greg Honorato. Thank you. We'll move on to the first item on our agenda, which is public participation. Tonight, we have not received requests to speak at public participation. However, in the future, any and all residents that wish to address the committee concerning policy, the budget, and the performance of the superintendent should reach out to the chairperson prior to our next meeting. The next item on our agenda is chairpersons and members' reports. Colleagues, anything to report? I have two things. One, I'd like to thank Beal Elementary School for hosting me on Mystery Reader Day. Actually, I was the mystery reader. I think it's still a mystery as to who I am, but it was Miss Braun's class. Had a great reading of a baseball book, and I really enjoyed my time there, so thank you for having me at Beal a few weeks ago. Also have good news to share as a committee, and like to advise the public that we have reached a tentative agreement with the Shrewsbury Education Association back on Monday, March 31st. We'll have more details to come in a future meeting, but I would like to thank the SEA team, President Kelly Finneran, and our school committee and central office team for all the hard work in reaching an agreement in just under 3 months, which is pretty remarkable. So thank you to all involved, and like I said, we'll have more details in an upcoming meeting. The next item on our agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wensky. A few things this evening that I would like to share. First off, I want to congratulate some academic teams that have done very well in competitions. First, we had 2 Destination Imagination teams, one from Sherwood Middle School, whose name is the Kingdom of United Broomsticks, and a team from Oak Middle School who are known as the Suspension Squad. They were building a suspension bridge. They both earned in the state competition the right to go to the World Championships. So it'll be held in Kansas City, Missouri, and we're working with those teams to help facilitate their travel there. We've had DI teams compete in Globals before. Actually had a team win a number of years ago at the Globals, and we're proud of them and all the other teams that competed this year in our Destination Imagination academic team competition. I also want to commend our Shrewsbury Robotics team. The Shrewsbury Robotics team has had an extraordinary season so far. They're now known as the Center of Mass team, play on words there, and they've qualified to participate in the first Robotics World Championships in Houston, Texas, primarily based on their robots' performance in their competitions, but they also won the first Impact Award, which is the most prestigious award that First Robotics gives out at the Western New England competition. They are also looking to, all of these groups are looking to raise funds. There's been some information going out. Anyone who is able to help contribute to that, to the cost of those trips, would be appreciated. But want to congratulate both our Destination Imagination and our robotics programs for their success. And then finally, I want to make the community aware, tomorrow evening, Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services and Shrewsbury Public Schools are partnering for a free event that's going to be taking place at Shrewsbury High School in the Bent Presentation Room, which is right off the main lobby, at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. The event is called Growing Self-Compassionate Children, a Family Guide for Nurturing Resiliency and Kindness. That's a book by authors Wendy O'Leary and Louise Shaniger. And they will be part of a panel discussion along with Fred Kalin, who is the Executive Director of Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. So hope to see lots of folks at that event tomorrow evening at Shrewsbury High School at 7 o'clock. And before concluding, I also want to send my condolences to the Honorado family and everyone that Greg Honorado, his family, his friends, and his colleagues, both here in the town IT department and those in the school IT department who work closely with him. I had the privilege of working with Greg, and his office actually for when I was the principal at Oak Middle School was located at Oak. He was just a terrific gentleman and really hard worker and very passionate about serving the needs of our community through his IT skill set, and he'll be greatly missed. So thank you for recognizing him this evening as well. And that is Superintendent's report.
Great, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is under curriculum. It is a literacy initiative update. Educators in grades K through 6 are actively implementing a new literacy program aligning instructional practices with the science of reading research. We have an update enclosed in our packet from Ms. Clowder and an overview of EL education curriculum highlights by grade and impacts on students from the curriculum. At this meeting, we have several students here with us tonight, along with several teachers and parents, and it feels like a capacity crowd, so I want to thank you all for being here. We're not used to that. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Clowder to introduce our guests.
Thank you so much. This is such a great opportunity that we've had. This is be our third literacy update. It's easily going to be my favorite because I'm confident that our students are going to steal the show. With me here tonight is Ashley Gallagher, and she's representing a whole host of other educators who are behind us. And I think it would be good for us just to mention them. So if you hear your name, please give a little wave. So here from Spring Street, we have Miss Rice and Mr. Maybe and Miss Brand. George is teaching? Yeah, okay. From Floral, we have Michelle Thomas, who's our instructional coach. From Beale, we have Miss Dunphy, instructional coach. Yeah, there we go. And Miss Papazian, also instructional coach. And Casey Cooney, perhaps? Yeah, the teacher. All right. We've got from Coolidge, Erin Kendrick. Teacher Tiffany Grillo. All right. From Patton, we have our own Ashley Gallagher, supporting Mary. And then for Sherwood, we have Principal John Kelly and Jesse Walsh and Jamie Hawley, teachers. And we have from grade 6, Leanne Orr. You'll see a little bit later. Okay. Did I miss anyone? I think this just goes to show you, this is a small sampling of all the people who are really working to further literacy. So these students tonight, I'm sure, are going to knock your socks off, but there's a whole crew of people that take credit for that good work. So my experience of reading was a really powerful one, and I feel the privilege and responsibility of ensuring that all students experience literacy to the degree I did. If you look at our vision, you can see, in addition to focusing on standards and explicit and aligned instruction, the thrust of the EL curriculum is really to foster curiosity, lifelong enjoyment of reading and writing, and a growth mindset. And I'm confident that as you hear our students present, you'll see those things evident in their work. And in terms of EL, this is something you've seen before, but just a reminder as you're listening to be thinking about, you'll see a sampling of the texts here as students talk, some of these aspects and how they show up in what you're about to hear. And now I'm going to get out of the way and cede the floor to Ashley, who will introduce each student.
All right. Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Sawyer and school committee members, for this opportunity to share the incredible instruction, learning, and joy that's happening across buildings. It's my pleasure to introduce you to these soon-to-be local celebrities here, and represent each grade level in elementary school across Shrewsbury. So I'm going to start with my new friend, George Delerba here. So in Module 3, kindergarten students explored the big ideas that all living things in the natural world have needs in order to survive and grow, and that through observation we can discern patterns in the ways that living things meet their needs. Their learning culminated in a series of science talks designed for them to share their research findings. They then created a final performance task, which you will see in just a moment, which includes a collage, informative writing, and an animal puppet. So I'm thrilled to introduce you to George Delerba, kindergartner at Spring Street School, in Susan Brand's class, supported by instructional coach Donna Rice. All right, George.
My name is George Delerba. I am in Mrs. Brand's kindergarten class at Spring Street School. We have read several stories about trees and how living things depend on trees. Then we worked in groups to research trees. I became an expert at on the quaking aspen. Then I taught others about my tree by making a tree collage, an informative booklet about the quaking aspen. My favorite part was making the collage because we got to make a sugar maple collage and a quaking aspen collage. This is my quaking aspen collage. And this is my porcupine
And why do you have a porcupine?
because we had to make puppets that depend on your tree.
Do you want to read them your informative writing?
All about quaking aspen trees. Quaking aspens are tall and skinny and have lots of leaves. Quaking aspens need some sun and water. Porcupines eat inner bark from quaking aspens.
Amazing job.
Great.
Good job.
Thank you.
I didn't even know that there was a quaking aspen. So.
Thank you.
In Module 3, first grade students built their literacy skills by engaging in an in-depth study of birds' bodies. This module focused on the big ideas that animals have physical features and behaviors that help them survive. For their performance task, students created expert bird riddle cards and expert bird scientific drawings for a riddle matching game using facts from their research. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to Lakshman Shamagam. Did I do it? A first grader in Brianna Hogan's class at Floral Street School, supported by coaches Lindsay Morris and Michelle Thomas, to share his work with you. Would you like to show us what you got?
I got this.
Do you want to hold it for you? Do you want to tell them what it is?
This bird has dark feathers that can help it camouflage in trees and in water. This bird has a short beak that can cut plants to eat.
And I'm gonna hold it, and then you're gonna have to tell them what are their two choices.
My two choices are the wood duck and the mallard duck.
Right, so does anybody have a guess which bird Lakshman was describing?
So you said it has dark feathers and a short beak. Was there a third clue? Or those just the two clues?
Yeah, the one.
And it has camouflage. I missed that one. I think, I'm going to guess, but I haven't read a lot of books about birds because I didn't have this curriculum, that maybe it's the wood duck?
Yes.
Yes, got it. And if you had guessed the mallard, it was nope.
Nope. Nope.
Try again.
That is great.
Awesome job.
In Module 3, second grade students built their research skills and science knowledge through a study of the secret world of plants and pollinators. For their performance tasks, students used their informative writing from Unit 2, as well as supplemental texts about specific plants and pollinators to prepare an oral presentation and poster to share their knowledge about a specific insect, pollinator, and a plant. I'm pleased to introduce you to Anastasia Wang, a second grader at Beale School in Casey Cooney's class, supported by instructional coaches Becky Dunphy and Lisa Papazian, to share her work with you.
My name is Anastasia Wong. I am a second grader at Beale School in Miss Cooney's class. We learned about pollinators and the pollination process. I have my pollinator booklet and pollinator poster to share with you today. We read many books about different pollinators. Then we got to choose a pollinator we wanted to learn more about. I chose butterflies and moths. I read about butterflies and moths in the book, What is Pollination? And then I learned more in the article Muchas Gracias, Butterflies and Moths. While I worked on my pollinator booklet, I learned about what I needed to include in my writing. I included an introduction, a focus statement, 3 details, and a conclusion to help readers learn more about butterflies and moths. My pollinator poster was a challenge that I persevered on. I wanted to add as many details as I could, which took a lot of time. I am excited to share my learning with my family and others at our class pollinator celebration next week. I will be sharing all I learned by giving a presentation about butterflies and moths as part of the pollination process. Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Anastasia, would you please place your I want to show everybody how you persevered. In Module 2, third graders use literacy skills to become experts, people who use reading, writing, listening, and speaking to build and share deep knowledge about a topic. Students build their reading, research, writing, and collaborative discussion skills through studying an expert frog. They then demonstrated their expertise through a Freaky Frog book and trading card to educate others. Oh, go ahead, hon. You got it.
My name is Rukaya Kabir, and I'm a third grader in Miss Grayle's class at Calvin Coolidge School. In Module 2, I became a frog expert. We read poems for quatrails and the book Everything You Need to Know About Frogs and Other Slippery Creatures to help us answer these guiding questions. How does the author engage the reader in a narrative? How do experts build knowledge and share expertise about a topic? And how do frogs survive? We then showed all our learning by creating a book about frogs. Here's mine. In it are 2 quatrails, 3 paragraphs, an essay, and even a trading card. To help create our books, we looked at model information text and noticed authors included text features to make the book more interesting. One feature we noticed was a blurb on the back to teach what the book was about. Here's my blurb to get readers' attention. Why do pollywogs wiggle? Why are glasshogs hard to see? And what are you waiting for? If you want to know the answers to these froggy questions, read now. Thinking about this module, I'm proud that I made this book, tried my hardest, and how great it turned out. Although this was fun, a challenge that I had to persevere through was definitely the typing. This was my first time really typing, so I wasn't really used to it. I thought this module was fun and interesting because we learned about many types of frogs.
Fourth graders in Module 2 explored animal defense mechanisms. They built proficiency in writing an informative piece, examining the defense mechanisms of one specific animal about which they built expertise. Students also built proficiency in writing a narrative piece about this animal. Students engaged in close readings of several informational texts and used a research notebook to make observations and to synthesize information. Students blended research of animal defense mechanisms with narrative writing. that takes the form of a choose-your-own-adventure story. This format lets students envision and write 2 different variations of the plot, with each variation featuring the use of a different defense mechanism. Proud to introduce to you Patton's own Mary Hayes, a 4th grader, and Nicole Cornwell's class.
My name is Mary Hayes, and I am a 4th grader in Mrs. Cormier's class at Patton School. This is my performance task from Module 2. In Module 2, we learned about the different ways animals' bodies and behaviors help them to survive. As a class, we read Venom, Animal Behavior, Animal Defenses, and Will You Survive the Wilderness? Then, we had 4 choices of animals that we could become an expert on. Our choices were a monarch butterfly, an armadillo, an ostrich, and a springbok gazelle. First, we found information to write an informative piece about our animal. We also researched using an EL education website and other sources to learn as much as we could about our animal. Then, we revised and edited our informative writing to make it better. After that, we got to the part where we were going to write our Choose Your Own Adventure book. We had to write a realistic fiction story about our expert group animal and how that animal would use its defense mechanism to survive against a predator. We added 2 choices that the animal could use. My class wrote our stories on the iPad so you could click which choice you wanted the animal to use. My expert animal was the monarch butterfly, and my readers have to choose if the monarch butterfly would use its poison or camouflage to survive against a hungry bird. I am proud of all the vocabulary that I used in my writing, and I'm also really proud of the research that I did at school and at home to make my story better. A challenge that I persevered through was when I felt like things were going slowly at the beginning of the module. But then I realized that there would be more fun activities and opportunities to learn more about the new topic. We needed time to do lots of reading and research and learn about how to make our writing stronger. I persevered because I couldn't wait to write the adventure novel. I want next year's 4th graders to know all about the fun activities we get to do along the way in EL. In the first module, we wrote our own poetry about something that inspires us and shared it. In the second module, we wrote these adventure stories, and in the third module, we will have a discussion about the American Revolution. Thank you.
I'm going to pass your booklet around, and then I'm going to have our elementary students stay in the audience for a bit and invite our middle school team and Mr. Kelly up to join us. Okay, so our 5th grade and our 6th grade teams, come on up. Doing a little consulting with me.
Well, we're excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having us. We have 2 of our 5th grade teachers, Ms. Walsh and Ms. Hawley, and we have Ms. Orr, who teaches 6th grade, and I'll let them introduce our students.
Great, so I can start. Jamie and I teach on 5 Gold at Sherwood, and we've wrapped up Module 2 a few weeks ago, which was on biodiversity in the rainforest. Some of the tasks that students participated in was reading some informational text. Our main text was The Most Beautiful Roof in the World by Catherine Lasky. They used that and they wrote some summaries. They did research to figure out ways they could help the rainforest. They participated in science talks with their classmates. They analyzed authors' craft in narrative text and used that to write their own narrative.
And then at the end, they had their performance task, which was to write an ebook and develop an ebook. And Jill Sikowski here was amazing. She was our signature book creator helper. She taught some lessons to the class about how to use it, because Ms. Welsh and I are not so good at it. So she was the first one that came to mind when we thought about who just did an incredible job on their project.
During Module 2, we learned about a lot of ways to help the rainforest and like help save the rainforest, because a lot of people are destroying these places and they contain a lot of valuable resources. And our performance task was writing an ebook based around stories from The Most Beautiful Roof in the World, the main text that we used. And so using the information in that, me, classmates, and a lot of other students at Sherwood created these ebooks to like inspire or bring awareness to the rainforest. So I have 2 narratives and an author's note that I wrote in the ebook. I wrote collaboratively a narrative with my friend Nora. We worked together to create a narrative based around a boy that is afraid of butterflies in the rainforest. And it was from a scenario in The Most Beautiful Roof in the World. And my narrative was about climbing into the canopy, and there, at the end especially, there were a lot of like things from the canopy in the rainforest that I included into my narrative, in the writing and in the drawings that I made. We also, for extensions, if we finished classwork, we could do a lot of different extensions, and me and a couple other students wrote a letter to a company that illegally clear-cutted rainforests and used products from farms that enforced child labor. So we wrote a letter to bring awareness to this topic. An excerpt from my book is from my narrative. It is the first page of my narrative. I aim my butterfly net at a patch of air about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. Readying my net, I creep towards the patch of air, and swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. I sweep the net through the air and back and forth about 4 times. I stop and set down my net to get a look at what's inside. In the net, I found 1 leafhopper, 3 diptera flies, and 3 beetles. I'll keep these bugs to research on later. All right, boys, I think we caught all the bugs over here, I say. My 2 sons, Edward and James, were helping me catch the bugs for research. Okay, Mom, can we go up in the canopy now? Edward asks. Yeah, can we? James runs over to where me and Edward were standing. Okay, I guess you guys are old enough to go up with me. But be extra safe, okay? I'm worried they will get hurt. Yeah, we'll be good. Come on, James, let's go get the harnesses on. I watch Edward and James as they climb into their harnesses. I will leave all my research equipment so that I can focus on their safety. I put the harness on and call the boy's uncle, Ed. He was also catching bugs in a different area, but I want him climbing behind the boys just in case. This was based on one of the scenarios in The Most Beautiful Roof in the World. They were getting ready to climb up into the canopy to research.
On to 6th grade.
In 6th grade, our Module 2 was on critical problems and design solutions. Our anchor text was The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. It's a story about William Kamkwamba, who's from Malawi, whose family suffered through famine and drought. And William decided that the critical problem for his family was the lack of electricity, so he created this windmill. And the amazing thing about William was that this family was so poor at the end of the drought and famine, they couldn't afford to send him to school. So he went to the library, learned everything about building a windmill, about electricity, about everything all on his own. And then ended up on a TED Talk. Someone noticed his work and became famous worldwide and created a foundation to have more windmills built in Malawi and in other places that are stricken with the same problems. The guiding questions for the module is how can design thinking help solve a critical problem, and what habits of character can help solve the critical problem to help contribute to a better community. So the focus was not only on innovators and designers and design solution, but also the habits of character that these people had to go out and create the things that they did create and innovate in the way that they did, and why they had why these critical problems came to their attention. We focused on habits of character such as compassion, empathy, perseverance, resourcefulness in William's case, because he actually found all parts of his windmill in like the trash and in junk, and he's begged, borrowed, and steal to get all the things that he needed for his windmill. And taking responsibility and initiative, and those are just a few of the habits of character that we focused on. And for our culminating project, we wrote a problem solution essay about, a designer that students did research for. They looked at numerous TED Talks, and they chose someone on their own that they would be interested in doing more research on their work. And they wrote about the critical problem that these people faced and how they came up with a solution to solve that problem. And we ended with a design solution symposium where they shared their work and they shared about their innovator. This is Sanvi writing.
My name is Sanvi, and I am in Miss Orr's 6th grade class. In this module, I learned about critical problems and their design solutions. Something that was new and interesting to me in this module was how William and the boy who harnessed the wind faced a level of poverty which I had never been exposed to or heard about, and this new understanding made me think of how privileged and I don't know how privileged I was to live in a world without poverty. For my culminating task, I chose Ashton Kofer, who turned excessive styrofoam waste into activated carbon, which is a material that's used to filter water. This is the solution. So he took the styrofoam, filtered it, and created the carbon. During his process, he showed initiative, perseverance, collaboration, service, and responsibility. He showed them by working with his teammates and taking leadership even when things were down. He persevered through a lot of challenges because the majority of his tests didn't work, and he showed responsibility because he always took initiative in everything that he did. He was 14 when he solved this problem. He's now much older, but it just goes to show that no matter what, you can always do something even when things are hard.
So I'm hoping that in the student presentations, you've heard a little bit about the integration of high quality work and character, as well as the content and the skills of reading and writing that students develop over time. I think the selection of the students from each grade kind of shows some of the through lines of the curriculum. You've heard a little bit about science talks, for example, from more than one grade. And I think that's another benefit. I can't wait to see the quality of work when we're into this work for several years. And you've heard me talk about the student view of reading in terms of including self-regulation. And so as part of this work, students reflect on how their learning impacts their own goals And I think that also has come through in some of their presentations. Thanks, John. And mostly, I want to think about, as we're working towards integrating this new curriculum into our practice and having students be part of public presentation, we're looking ultimately back to our portrait of the graduate as our vision for what we want to achieve for all students. So this work in literacy is a way of advancing educational excellence, which is, as you know, in our strategic plan. And this is just an opportunity for you to ask our presenters questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the presentation, and thanks to all of our presenters. Job well done. Colleagues, questions, comments? Ms.
First of all, thank you, Mrs. Clouder, for bringing, well, first I want to thank you for listening it to us and for bringing all these amazing students to us, because this is exactly what I wanted to see. Because it's one thing to have our educators standing up here and telling us how high quality this is. It's another thing to actually see the high quality material that's come out here, because I can't imagine that I, growing up, learned things like this, because we have not only are we doing literacy, but we're creating scientists and artists and writers, public speakers. You speak much better than many of the adults that come up to talk to us. The handwriting on some of them, better than mine. It's amazing, but like the researchers, you're saving rainforests, you're becoming activists, the critical thinking, it's just like, that is incredible. And the work that you're all doing in the classrooms as students is amazing. And you should be so proud of yourself. I am proud of you, all of you. I do have 2 students myself who are working with EL, and I can see their work, but then seeing what that looks like student to student in the same grade. And then, with the younger grades too, it's incredible. And it's also incredible on our staff level too, the amount of work that goes into this, and what you were presented with this new program and kind of said, here you go for it. And what came out of it, you had such different projects and different takes, and obviously that accounts for younger grades have different things than the older ones, but that was amazing. And that is truly when, we think about what is really important to us across the district and what to invest in. This is exactly, for me, this is like the proof is in the pudding. Like, this is amazing to see. And these are things that I'm so happy that we're doing as a district. This is just gonna make you all better students. And I cannot wait to see where this leads years down the line when you're leading this country. And it's all because of the EL education that we had. So thank you to all of you. It really, truly was amazing. You should be proud of yourself, because we are proud of you.
Ms. Fritz?
Thank you to all the students. And I sit here thinking back when I was in kindergarten. I could never have read that way or sat in front of a group of adults reading that way. And then through all of the grade levels, when we talked about literacy, we knew we wanted to improve reading and comprehension. I have been hearing this for years, but seeing it in action it's even more amazing than I thought it would be. And like Ms. Rapoport said, I wrote researching, critical thinking, public speaking, and really learning about new things. And I'm probably dating myself, and maybe Mr. Maybe will remember this, but when we had Dick, Spot, and Jane books, and that's how they were these simple books we learned to read. That was it. And now you're taking it and applying it to other areas of education, and you're writing. It's a much better way to learn to read and write and comprehend and learn about other things while you're doing it. So I'm so impressed by the students and the teachers, and as a school committee, we know that new initiatives are a lot of work, and it's time consuming. But when we see this, it's really I think, we see the worth in having it, and the educational experiences coming out of it are just gonna be that much better. Because if you're reading and writing in kindergarten, wait till you get up into the older levels, you're gonna be way far ahead of where we ever were when we were growing up. So thank you to everyone, and I'm totally impressed with this whole program, and thank you to Ms. Clouder for really championing it.
Thank you for the idea.
Ms. Boucher?
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everyone that participated tonight. The students were incredible, so impressive. Thank you all for sharing all of the learning that you've been doing this past year. just so impressive, this program, and to see it in action, to see how not only is it literacy, but it's also touching on all these other disciplines as well, science, social studies, art, and to see the speaking, the listening, the reading, the writing, how it's all comes together. It's one thing for us to read about it, but to actually see you all put it into action tonight, it's just very, very impressive. And I would like to thank all the educators for all of the hard work. I know that, as my colleagues have said, it's not easy to get something like this launched, and it's so impressive to see how the progress these students have made already in such a short period of time. So thank you all.
Ms. Heffern.
Yeah, I certainly need to echo all of my colleagues, for all of you in the audience here, for speaking first. George, it's not easy to start, so thank you very much. And sharing in front of all of us, all the way through those who are sitting right up here today. I mean, I think I was also thinking about the Dick and Jane books and how I learned from George about where porcupines live, and I didn't know anything about that, and where that they lived in trees, let alone the name of the tree that they lived in. But all the way through, I think what I really appreciated, and I want to thank Ms. Clowder for sort of demonstrating for us, because we sit back here and we think about budgets and we think about curriculums to purchase, and we don't necessarily get to see all of that. But some of the examples that the students shared throughout, Ms. Clowder, and I think this goes to all the educators in the room, were not only, I think it was, talking about how was I going to engage my audience, and you had the riddle about the duck, and how are we going to engage someone there, or Anastasia talking about adding detail and what was that going to look like, and moving on, Rakaya talked about how then I had to learn how to type. And we get to some of our later students, obviously typing, we have whole books, right, that folks are creating, or how to click through choices. And the last two examples in particular, really adapting that to like a world problem, right? And thinking about how am I going to explain this to somebody and get them to engage with me, because we want you all to help us fix the world, and you got to get people with you. You need a pack of people. So it's just really great to see that progression from where we sit. Not only that the topics are seemingly engaging, they seem engaged. These are cool things, whether it's snakes and trees or solving a styrofoam problem in the world. That's a problem that needs some fixing. So thank you for telling us about folks who are doing that. I didn't know about Mr. Kofer, but good to know. And that I think it's great to see how each of these things you can continue to imagine how they will build on themselves to get to that place where we have young people leaving the Shrewsbury Public Schools ready to engage on the complex problems, right? And it's starting all the way back there. So thank you to all the parents for being here with us this evening. I realize it is bed and dinner time for some of you as well, but hopefully you all can go and find us back on Shrewsbury Media Connection website and share it with other family members. You're out there and you're stars, and we really appreciate you sharing your kids with us. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Ms. Clowder, I can't thank you enough for all the updates you provide us, especially over the last year, this program. And, you've shared the data with us. We've seen it trend in really, really good direction, but it's a whole other thing to see it happening in person, to feel it, and just really thankful to all of the teachers that are here tonight that are supporting their students just amazingly. And, I know this has been a big change for you, for your day-to-day. And I've always felt this was a marathon, not a sprint, as they say, and just outstanding work supporting your students. So thank you. And to our students, our elementary students, to start. I know you were rehearsing prior to the start of our meeting. In public speaking is a very tough thing, no matter what age you are, whether you're in elementary school, middle, or as adults. It's not easy. So thank you for speaking to us tonight. You all did an excellent job. And you are local celebrities. I will admit that. Not only being here presenting in front of us, but sometimes I like to believe there are thousands of people watching us on TV. And then I get home and I realize it wasn't the case. But no, it's just awesome to see the progress in person. I really appreciate you being here, and a big thank you to our families as well for being here as well. It is dinner time, as you mentioned, and homework and bedtime. So really appreciate you all being here. As I said at the beginning, we're not used to having such a big crowd, and we love it. So thank you so much. I did hear one of the elementary students say at the beginning that they thought they were going to walk into a stadium for this meeting. And I'll have to work on that for 15 minutes, because that would be fun, as long as you all come back. But thank you so much. It's a great presentation. Dr. Sawyer, further comments?
Thank you. I'm extremely proud of these students, and you can see why. I want to note that there are hundreds of different students who could have come and presented to you this evening, because these are not exceptions. They're exceptional students and have done excellent work that they're showcasing this evening. But what we've had the privilege of seeing going into classrooms is that our students overall are just doing really high-quality work, and that's their hard work, their parents' support, but the work of our teachers and our instructional coaches, our administrators, and principals, assistant principals, and Ms. Clowder, orchestrating all of this in terms of the process. We're really pleased and proud of the work that's happening, and we think it's really paying off. And we're just scratching the surface, I think, as this gets embedded in our work and we get used to it over the next few years. I think that the sky is the limit. It's really, I think you're noticing all the things you've commented about, why this is a high-quality program, and it's just a good use of students' time. And what I've mentioned before is that I've just been so impressed with the discourse in classrooms, the classroom conversations at a very high level with students who are very young, really dissecting the reading that they're doing, the themes, and then creating projects like this that are just really knocking everybody's socks off. So really, really impressed. Thank you. I'm also particularly proud. I've had the good fortune of being in this community for a long time now. So let me do a little test here. First of all, how many of our educators in the audience are graduates of the Shrewsbury Public Schools? So a handful there.
Wow.
Some of whom were my students at different times. How many of our parents were my students at Floral Street School? Yep, so I know two. So there's a second generation student who presented this evening, which was really makes me very pleased and proud. Again, just want to really thank our students. We have one more thing for our students to do. We have a special certificate for you. I'm going to give you one challenge. I'm going to ask you to line up right over at this black table from kindergarten through 6th grade. Put yourselves in order, and then you're going to come shake the hands of the school committee, and I'll present you with a certificate, and then we'll do a little photograph here, if that's okay, right in front of the desk. So here comes George. He knows he's first. And how about a round of applause for our students? Great job, George. George, I got something for you. There you go. That's yours. Hold on 1 second. I'll make sure it's the right one. All right, and you're Lakshman, right?
Nice job. Great job.
All right. And we've got Anastasia.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Nice job.
Great job.
Yeah.
And let's see. Congratulations. Great job. Congratulations. Great job.
We appreciate it.
That's yours. And then we've got Jill. Excellent job on that ebook, Jill.
You did a great job. Just a little bit for me. Let me.
Sandy. Outstanding job on that project. Well done.
I think that's right. Are you going to send it to him? Thank you. All right, Dr. Sawyer.
All right, so let's get these, can we get these students right in front of the desk over here, guys? Can you spread out here, and then we'll have maybe Ms. Heffernan can come back here.
Kelly, there you go. We need a photo of them. All right.
Thank you very much.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I want one more round of applause for our students.
And one for our educators.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
All right, you guys can head home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Such a great job.
Such a great job.
Yeah, I got it.
Your shirt is so perfect for it. Sorry, Did you make that? Early
Okay.
I'm reading.
No problem.
Right.
Thank you so awesome. Thank you so much.
Wonderful job. It's gonna be up there with it.
Tune it up.
Yeah. He just likes to follow. That's all.
Night.
Oh gosh, no, it's so exciting. Well, tomorrow we're sharing with the quarter and
All right, we'll move on to the next. Yes.
Thank you. Good to see you. Say hi to your folks.
Thank you.
All right. I think I said that 5 times. All right. Next item on our agenda is under policy. It is first reading update to policy number 913 regarding fundraising. This is the first reading of an updated fundraising policy, school committee policy 913, for review by the committee. Ms. Boucher and Ms. Sharifapour are members of the policy subcommittee. The draft has been provided to us under separate cover. After the meeting, the draft will be posted for public viewing and feedback in advance of a planned vote by the committee at the meeting on April 30th. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Sharifapour.
Thank you, Mr. Wensky. The policy subcommittee met, and we wanted to take a look at our current fundraising policy we have for the district. The policy that we have in place, we adopted back in 2016. And given that the fundraising landscape is constantly changing with new technology, new platforms, there have been changes to donor preferences, engagement. This, in combination with that our priorities as a district have also evolved, we felt that now was a good time to reflect and make some updates to the policy. We are so fortunate as a district to have very engaged PTOs, athletic boosters, the Shrewsbury School Music and Theater Association, Shrewsbury Education Foundation, among others, that put a lot of time and energy into helping make our schools even better. While these groups serve multiple purposes, they have made it possible to fund academics and activities through fundraising initiatives. In addition, students and staff also engage in a variety of fundraising for specific purposes, such as activities to raise funds for specific student programs. So this policy's intent is to provide clarity and a little bit of structure regarding guidelines for approval and participation in fundraising activities. We want every school, every group that fundraises in the district to be able to have their own identity and to be able to put their own flair to their events and fundraisers, but to do that in a way that we feel good about and represents the district and what we believe in, and do that well. So I'm not going to read through the entire policy, but I did want to highlight a few things that we've added in, made a little bit of tweaks to. We will have a draft of the policy up on the website tomorrow. And after I go through some of the changes, I'll let those listening and watching, even though we lost all of our audience a few minutes ago, where to go find the document. So first and foremost, we want to feel good about how we fundraise. So to this extent, we've explicitly added that the purpose, content, and methods of all fundraising must be aligned with the mission and core values of the Shrewsbury Public Schools. So like I said, we want to feel good about fundraising, how we got there, and what we're providing for our schools. We also added a little bit of language. So we had previously, fundraising activities must be approved by the superintendent if it's a district-wide initiative, or a school principal if it is a building-based initiative. Although this was in the policy previously, we added in that a school-based fundraiser will also be discussed between the building principal and our assistant superintendent of finance and operations. And the purpose of this is to consider issues including the intended purpose of the funds that are being raised, logistics and manageability of the fundraiser, the cost burden to participate in the fundraiser, so that would be ticket prices of something, the price of goods that are being sold, things like that. The total number of fundraisers that are held or requested for that year. That's not meant to be a barrier for any of our groups that are fundraising, but rather to ensure equity amongst our schools and our school populations. We also had, this was in the policy, but we added to it, students and their families may not be compelled to participate in fundraising activities. While the fundraising entity may strongly encourage or incentivize participation, during the approval process, the superintendent or school principal must be mindful of the age of the students involved, the ways in which the fundraiser is designed, so as not to create undue pressure on students or families. What we added to this is that school and community-based incentives, like earning a special experience at school or in the local community, school merchandise, etc., are preferred. Incentives that, in the judgment of the administration, overemphasize material rewards or use tactics that are perceived as creating overly aggressive time pressure, peer pressure, etc., will not be approved. Because these are optional, fundraising activities may not be assigned to students as classwork or homework, nor may optional participation in a fundraising activity exempt students from classwork or homework. And something that we discussed as we were going through this, and so this is new to our fundraising policy, is fundraising activities shall not require a student to disclose personally identifying information. So that includes your name, address, phone, email, birth date, etc. Nor shall fundraising activities incentivize the submission of contact information for students, their families, or others by the student. Any disclosure of personal information to participate in a fundraiser, so that's purchasing goods, participating in a drawing, etc., must be optional for families to choose. As part of the approval process, the superintendent, the school principal, in consultation with the assistant superintendent for finance and operations, shall consider how a fundraising activity will handle personally identifiable information, including how optional information is submitted, will be stored and protected, and whether disclosure of personal information may subject participants to follow-up communication from a third-party company. So a copy of the proposed policy will be made available on our website tomorrow. If you toggle to the 2024-2025 school committee meeting documents on the left-hand side of the page, you'll find where that's where the policy will be. As always, we welcome all feedback on this policy and encourage any of you watching at home to read through this. And if there are comments or suggestions, please email us at schoolcommittee@shrewsbury.k12.ma.us. So at this time, if the committee has any questions or comments, we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much. Colleagues, questions, comments, Ms. Fritz?
Just thank you for taking a look at this policy. I think all well-intentioned, fundraising is something that we do need as a district. It supplements our budget, but looking at tying it to our values as a district, and then separating it from maybe some other things that might have kind of crept in, all well-intentioned, but just making sure everybody understands what the policy is and the clear levels and guidelines is great. So thank you for doing this.
Further comments, Ms. Heffernan?
Yeah, I also really want to thank our members of the subcommittee and Dr. Sorgan and others who I'm sure were involved. And just want to note, we've had a busy year for the policy subcommittee. I was just going back and I was like, we were doing in the fall teen dating violence, in January and February, both a bullying policy and an intervention plan. March was graduation and competency, and now April we're on fundraising. And I think we had a lot of years with COVID where we had a lot of other issues that I think it's now the right time, as Ms. Fritz said, to kind of look back at some things. Stuff has changed. I appreciate what I see as an opportunity here to sort of tighten up some practices and make sure they consistently align with our values. So big appreciation to those who have spent time on this, and I very much do look forward to, as was noted, there are a lot of groups that fundraise on the behalf of the students of the Shrewsbury Public Schools, and in some ways we've also become a bit reliant on them. And so how do we make sure we have a moment to take a beat and make sure that everything is sort of feels good and feels copacetic and also is rolling out, as you said, well administratively within the buildings, right? Because there are so many communities, groups trying to oftentimes help. How are we making sure we're kind of managing that well? So thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing if we have feedback as we move forward.
Definitely has been a busy year for policy. Probably one of the busiest I've seen in the 10 years that I've been on the board. But yeah, thank you to our subcommittee for all the work, and to Dr. Sawyer. Certainly fundraising is a critical aspect of our schools. It funds a lot of really good programs that the appropriate budget is not able to support. But, I think it makes sense to really look deeper into this policy. Certainly fundraising has gotten more sophisticated. There are a lot more options out there. We want to make sure that it aligns with the values of the district. So definitely looking forward to hearing from the public. As was mentioned, please reach out to us via email, schoolcommittee@shrewsbury.k12.ma.us. And Dr. Sawyer, any further comments?
I appreciate the work that Ms. Shreveport and Ms. Boucher have done on the policy subcommittee on this. I think it gives good guidance to our administrators around what the expectations are, and I think it will help also with the interface with all these terrific groups that do fundraising to help support various aspects of our program. We'll be sure to be communicating out with them as well in the meantime, so that they can give any feedback they would like before we ask you to adopt this at your April 30th meeting. So, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. The next item on our agenda is under Finance and Operations. It's a FY26 Information Technology Budget Report. We have an enclosed report that provides an overview of the FY25 Information Technology Budget, and presents proposals for the FY26 budget. And joining us tonight is our Director of Information Technology, Mr. Cadian Phillips. I'd like to welcome him up to present to us. Welcome, Cadian.
Well, thank you.
Sorry we couldn't keep the crowd.
I know. It's going to be really hard to follow that. Just got to get us together here. Well, thank you for having me to present the FY26 budget for the Information Technology Department. First thing, unfortunately, it's been a really sad week or a couple of days with the IT department after losing a colleague. So, best wishes and our thoughts to the family and friends and colleagues of Greg Honorado. So you'll be missed for sure. For the Information Technology Department, we're basically touching almost everything in the district currently. It's a large mission-critical network serving 7,000 users between our students and our staff. Continues to impact daily activities, in teaching and learning, and learning at home too, because we have devices that also go home with our students. Our primary cost drivers are basically those regular updates that we have to do, updating existing systems, new online systems that come in place, new resources that get added. Typically, these recommendations comes from the staff in the building, so we're not working in a silo. They'll make recommendations saying these are products that we're evaluating. They'll include us in that process. And we've seen, especially with after COVID, our teachers have become a lot more comfortable with the use of technology, and we're seeing it more and more in use in their daily teaching. And the Stratton department really has been. I've been really impressed with the investment the school committee has made over the years with this department, especially with staffing. So for staff, our current staff, myself as the director, we have the project manager position that was added last year. We have an administrative assistant who is .3. We share that with the staff of the high school and athletics. So that's a split position. And just doing more clerical work for us. We have a data manager position, a data specialist, 2 network managers now. This is also a second position that was added. We had one before, and now we have that second network position. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of these positions soon. We have a Tier 2 IT specialist, or senior AV technician, a junior AV technician or IT support specialist, and then we have a building-based IT support specialist spread across the district, supporting users daily. So typically, this staff, it's a collaborative team. I think that's the thing I've been, again, really impressed with after joining, and they've been welcoming of me to the team, but also just the dedication each day, the collaboration between all the different members, and just the tireless work they do each day to make sure that all our buildings are run as efficiently as possible. typically we don't hear about IT until things break, right? And we try to stay ahead of it. That's kind of where we're moving now. So a couple things that just to keep the committee, appraised of is that things are going to break, and these are things that we've been making investments in over the years. Our one-to-one iPad and all are in the district, K through 12, our teacher devices, Wi-Fi. Wireless goes down, we'll hear about it pretty quickly because so many classrooms depend on that, and so many devices in general. Apple TVs and interactive projectors, we use them across the district. Voice over IP phones, so that's a new investment that we did this past fiscal year, and that's spread across the district. Printers and copiers, security cameras, communication systems, access control, the list continues, and you have it in front of you here, but these are all things that make up the back end of, or the backbone of the tech within the district. We're seeing more and more systems move online. So before we used to purchase like a license, we'll install it on the device, stays on the device. Now we're seeing vendors basically moving, it's all cloud-based. So it's going to be more somewhat predictable subscription models. So that's somewhat been helpful, where each year we can say this is what we expect to pay, as opposed to coming to the committee saying we bought it 6 years ago. Now it needs to be renewed, and we need a bigger chunk. So we're starting to see that across the district. So with the addition of the project manager, there have been a lot of projects that we've been able to complete this year. I say this all the time. Brian LaRue, I don't know how he did it all in the time when he was doing this, because he was basically wearing multiple hats. And I think adding this position has allowed us to basically become more proactive in terms of things that we can take care of now, as opposed to waiting for it to break or be reactive when we hear about it down the road. So things that were on the list for many years, I think, that he really wanted to tackle. And I look back at his list from last year, and they're all basically complete. And just to speak of the type of person he is too. The transportation management system replacement, that's done. The phone system replacement, moving to Zoom Phone, PowerSchool hosting migration, moving from on-premises over to the cloud. The new IEP and 504 plan tracking system that's integrated into PowerSchool, so now you can view it all in one place. It used to be in a separate place. A facility use scheduling improvement. So we use the facilities for not only for staff in-house, but also for outside vendors. So we have a system now where outsiders can reserve rooms, and we can make sure that they have the IT staff they need, the AV staff they need, the wireless that they need for the number of connections. So we're really improving on that. We're also working pretty collaboratively with the town on her human capital management system. So that's a pretty big project, a lot of cleanup work going there. But again, I think that will reap its benefits in the future. So a lot of work there. We're pushing out absence and substitute management systems soon, and improving our key card security system. So the things that keeps me up at night are cyber security demands. We've seen a couple times this year already. Taunton has been dealing with it for a couple weeks now. Fall River just got hit. I'm on a tech forum with the tech director there, and they had to shut off their internet. And this week, on Monday, this happened. Attackers are waiting. They're looking for vulnerabilities. So we must protect highly confidential student, family, and staff information. And unfortunately, this year we had the PowerSchool breach for no fault of our own. So these are becoming issues too, as we move to more online spaces where we're not hosting things internally. And even if we were hosting PowerSchool at that time, we would still be hit, just the nature of how it happened. But this is things that we're constantly having to work through. How can we secure our data? How can we secure our systems with this increased pace, complexity, and severity of the threats? We need to be rapid in terms of our response to these. What the new positions have created is now a team where we can collaboratively be looking at all the threats that come in. We have an alerting system that monitors our critical infrastructure. And if something were to happen, we get an alert pretty quickly, where we're able to hopefully identify the threat and mitigate it or remediate it as much as possible, or as quickly as possible. So within our system too, we also have a pre-approval process for the use of technology because we're using so many outside vendors. So myself and the Director of Instructional Technology, Shauna Powers, we typically review all programs that will be sharing student data. So if they're connecting to our student information system or Clever or anything that has personal identifiable information in it, we want to make sure what we're sharing is being secure, make sure that their privacy policy is in keeping with what we need it to be, and they're having security measures in place. For example, we had a website that staff were trying to use, and we couldn't find who was the owner of the site. And as great as the site looked, we felt we weren't comfortable approving that site because where's the data going? And if we were to try and get it back or have it deleted, we don't know if that would ever happen. So we're definitely being proactive there. And with the change on the addition of the second network manager, the two network manager and myself, we're constantly monitoring those threats as they come in. You know, with Fall River and Taunton, they had to turn off the internet completely because once the threat was inside their system, they weren't sure what would be traveling between. So those are things we're trying to get ahead of. We're also doing a penetration test right now, and this is again through funding through the school committee, where we have an outside vendor acting as if they are a threat agent, and see what can they get into, or where are we secure. So hopefully that would also catch any holes that we may have in our system to better protect us. So network team accomplishments, again, with the two network managers, faster initial response and drastically reduced resolution time averages. It was tough with one network manager where if something were to happen, we'd basically run off to finish that project and then whatever they were working on in terms of cybersecurity or some upgrade kind of got pushed back. So now we're definitely a lot more being proactive in our updates and monitoring because we have the capacity to do it now. That monitoring, and we're consolidating our servers, we're looking through our servers. So on my end, it's nice to be a fresh set of eyes coming in from the outside, seeing things, and asking the questions. Why are we doing this? Is this the most efficient way to do this? So we've kind of been trying to consolidate our systems as much as possible. Again, it just makes our lives easier in terms of things we have to monitor. Trying to get rid of noise in terms of the alerts that we get. So we know that if we get an alert, it is an actual something we should be looking at, as opposed to this just comes in and we just ignore it because it comes in every day. Our network infrastructure has improved tremendously. So we added 15 new switches. So switches where we connect the Ethernet cables to, or all the cabling in the back end. For the addition of the Zoom phones and cameras, we just added additional cameras today over at Oak, and these were actually identified in the safety and security plan as areas that we should be addressed. So that was great to do that, and we'll talk a little bit about the funding for that in a few slides. Network segmentation. So we had some issues at the high school last year with MCAS because just the way the network was designed. So again, having that second network manager has really helped us in terms of prioritizing that as a project so we could get it done when last year we just didn't have the capacity to do it. Adding MFA, you all hear multi-factor authentication everywhere. That could save, and even with the PowerSchool breach, that was the issue. Every tech director was so upset that PowerSchool, who is the leader and the biggest student information system out there, had a setup where an employee didn't need multi-factor authentication to access multiple systems across the country, across the world, really, and so that could have been avoided. So we're trying to make sure we have that set up here for us. Adding UPS, so that's like uninterrupted power supplies, just in terms if the power does go out, we can keep our major systems up and running, so there's no outage. And then just changing like how Wi-Fi, we authenticate to the Wi-Fi. So these have been all great additions because we now have the capacity to do this with your support. We're also leveraging other funding sources. So we received a cyber awareness grant through the state, through where they will be running simulated phishing campaigns. So we'll send out emails to staff, see the click rate, then it'll send them to a training. We're also working on also part of this program, we will have training for our staff. So we're just kind of thinking through how we're going to roll that out to staff. So hopefully we'll get that out soon. But we're lucky to get that grant because a few districts were waitlisted. So so that was pretty great. Project Lead the Way Computer Lab upgrade. So this was on the list from last year. We're lucky to get some funding from the Colonial Fund to cover that, and we're actually setting those up right now. We found out that the Project Lead the Way computers were, I think, from 2012 or something, pretty old. So they were starting to crawl, and that lab really needs higher end machines for what they're running, like Photoshop and CAD programming. So that's been a high priority. We spoke about adding the security grant, and that was identified through the safety and security audit, and that came from the last fall. The funding came from the special town meeting. So again, that's really helpful, using those other sources. We added Open Architects data warehouse. So this is a program where we're collecting data from our various systems, and we have one pane of glass where we can see if a student scores this on the MCAS, what would they score on ALEX or on the different or STAR Math, and so we can start looking for correlations, start looking for trends, looking at our access data. So I think as we move forward to be a data-rich district, I think this is going to be essential. A tool where all staff will be able to access this. Right now we've rolled it out with the admin staff and DLT, and hopefully we'll be moving this out or rolling it out to the rest of the staff soon, so they can have that data for the students in front of them and start looking for those trends. We continue to rely on E-Rate within the tech director world. We're still we're making sure we're advocating for E-Rate. This is through the FCC, and that could potentially go away with federal funding. So I know there are various organizations out there in the tech world who are advocating for that. And we had a few interns this year. The QCC reached out, and we had a very a great gentleman who joined us. He was actually a staff here before as a behavior tech, and he switched his career to be in IT. So he came in and he was working with us 15 hours a week for free each week as he tries to build his skills. And we're hoping to get another QCC intern for the summer to help us, and hopefully we'll build that relationship. I think it's a great program where we could be techs in training, where if we were looking to hire someone, we know they've been through our system and everything else. We also had the RISE program reach out. They came over. We had 2 students who came over for a few hours a day. I think it was difficult for them to be placed with an internship, and we have a couple students that were really interested in the tech field. So we thought it would be great to find some tasks that they could do weekly and help us out. So, and again, that's a program that we hope will continue moving forward. So for the budget for FY26, Brian did me a great favor last year by asking for everything he needed this year, and thank you guys again for supporting that, because I think a major reason this year has been so successful for us is the staffing that you guys supported us and provided for the team, as well as the funding for all the programs and software and hardware that we typically need year to year. So this year I'm only asking for $30,000 for Open Architects. It was funded through a grant last year, so we're hoping to get that in the operating budget, and then $11,000 for the absence and time off substitute teacher management system. So this is a system where we're in the implementation phase right now, where the staff member who wants to be out for the day moves in, says I'm going to be, I'm sick tonight, right now I'm not feeling well, and then it goes to a pool of subs, and they can pick it up, from a phone call or a text or on an app. So hopefully I just make that process a little bit more efficient moving forward. So a few recommendations. They're not funded, and we'll continue to look for other funding sources as they become available, whether it be savings from FY25, or if we need to move funds between a program that was funded for FY26 that we may not need. So Google Workspace, we're currently using the free version. They do have a updated version, like the next tier up, that has more monitoring, more security tools that would definitely be helpful for us. We're doing a pilot right now. They gave us a 60-day trial, and we're really seeing that this is a tool that, so an email comes in, like a phishing email comes in to all our staff, we can quickly go in and delete it from the staff's inbox before they actually see it. Those are capabilities that we don't have right now, and a lot of reporting features. As our fleet has changed with iPads, we've moved from Lightning to USB-C. So we're going to have to upgrade those keyboards to new USB-C keyboards throughout the elementary schools. Our key card system, there's certain enhancements. Like one thing that we're hoping to do is if a police trooper they typically have 2 fobs in the trooper. So they go to the building, they try to come in with their card, but they can't get in with their card. They have to use the one that's assigned to the school. We don't know that we don't have a way to transfer between the 2 systems now, but with this enhancement, we'd be able to do that. That would be one of the biggest things, where they have 1 fob. If it changes with the town, it automatically changes with the schools. So then it's communicating back and forth, and we wouldn't need to communicate with Selco as much with any changes there. The door at the high school, it's working, it's functioning, but we're starting to see the rods are starting to corrode a little bit, so we will need to repair those at some point. Wi-Fi authentication, we're starting to hear that Microsoft is going to take away how we log into the system. We log in through a server here, but everything again is moving towards the cloud, so we're going to have to look into getting a new system for that. Replacement for amplification system. You've probably seen some of these already, and then classroom projector upgrades. Those are ongoing. We've kind of been doing it as much as we can. So then the phase that we have left will be Floral and Sherwood. We still have a few. Those were the older ones. So they've changed from the bulb projector to now the laser projectors. So we're hoping to start replacing that fleet. Again, we're trying to be proactive here instead of being reactive, where they break in the middle of the year, and then we're trying to get someone to come out and fix it. And then we have a server that's going to be no longer supported after 2026, so we're definitely going to have to find a way to fund that at some point. So in conclusion, technology is critical across all departments to provide the tools that impact instruction and student learning. The major asset for our team is the members of that team. We respond to the incidents daily in each of the building. With the cybersecurity demands, the increased staffing was definitely justified, and I don't know how we would have done it without it. Again, Brian wasn't sleeping, I'm pretty sure, because but the demand is there, and we're seeing schools get hit more and more because we're vulnerable, and the cyber actors know that. And then we do have to keep on investing on all the necessary upgrade. Tech goes old or outdated within a couple of years, so we constantly have to be, again, proactive with that to make sure we're in keeping with the needs of the district. And thank you for the opportunity to present, and it's a great meeting, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Colleagues, questions? Ms. Fritz?
Thank you for the presentation, and welcome. This is your first time with us, and I think to me, IT makes the world go round, and it's getting more. And if we don't keep up with the changes and the pace, we don't want to get behind, because it's just going to cost more, or things won't work like they should. So I think the budget request is actually modest. Yeah. Looking at the list of other things that really are needed, and a couple of security, and then that last one, the 50K, for that will, after 2026, that will be gone.
Right.
So to me, as we move forward in the budget, looking at if there's anything that's really mission critical, that you let us know, because I think things are just going to get more expensive, and if it doesn't work. I'm really happy to hear about the whole phishing and the cybersecurity piece. I know in private corporations, like that is, we get these all different kinds of phishing emails, and they're getting much clever. And we just had one where it was, nobody knew if it was real or not, and ended up being real. Right. And things had to be shut down. So I'm glad we're going to have the teachers kind of take a look at that, because everybody's on an iPad or a laptop. One question I have as we look going forward with AI, and, you know, looking at AI and that coming in to the schools possibly, and also having to be very careful what type of AI you use. Is that something that's in the background as we move forward?
Yeah, we're working on a report as we speak. So we'll be presenting, I think, at the end of the month, the work that the AI committee, I've been serving on a committee too for the past couple months, where we're trying to develop a policy around what that looks like in our schools, what are potential products. I think, again, with tech, we don't want to say these are products that you're going to use, but as part of our the work that Shauna and I do in terms of evaluating software and all the different things we'll be using, I think it will be part of our curriculum for sure.
Great, thank you very much.
Great, Ms. Boucher.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to meet you. We appreciate bringing the fresh set of eyes to looking at all this for us and looking for efficiencies that, you know, somebody that's new to our district can bring. I did have a question about the Open Architects Data Management System. It sounds like a really great program. So that's something that you're looking for $30,000 for. Is that a subscription service that we'll be providing now?
Yeah, so we have it in place now. We're wrapping up implementation where we're pulling in data from our student information system, so grades, attendance, MCAS data, the benchmark assessments. So we're just finding all our different systems and trying to and SAT, PSAT in one location, and MCAS, of course. So then staff, and then start looking at trends. So we paid for it this year with a grant, but then next year that grant may not be available. So we want to make sure that we have it budgeted because I think it's going to be critical as we move to a data-rich system.
And I'd also just like to echo Ms. Fritz's point about the other priorities that you've listed that aren't funded, and maybe trying to get an order of what's most mission critical out of that list, because they all seem important and things that we're going to need to do, if not in the next year, shortly. So if you could maybe take a look at that and give us like a kind of your wish list in order of how you'd like those things funded, I think that might be helpful for the committee to take a look at.
Thank you.
Ms. Reeford.
Erin kind of stole some of what I was saying, but it's nice to have you in front of us. I've been able to work with Katie in a little bit on the AI stuff, but it's nice to have you actually here in person. I think just to tap on a little bit to the question you had, so the $30K for Open Architects and the $11K for the absence, those are, we should expect those every year. So that 41 is something that we should know that it's going to be, the subscription is 30,000 for the following year. Okay. And I agree. I would like, in the infinite amount of time that you have, if you could go through the list and just say, like, these are really high priority for us, would love to knock those out in the next few months if possible, to would love to have not really a huge deal to us. That would be very helpful. But again, anything that comes up that is helpful, because we are only as good as the systems that are keeping us, and we want to obviously protect student information. We want to protect our staff information as well. So if there are things that come up that would be critical to the IT department to make your life easier, to make everybody else's life easier, please let us know.
Great. Ms. Heffernan.
Yeah, it's also a pleasure to meet you. I've been hearing wonderful things, so it's glad to put a face to the name. And certainly, I think with my colleagues, was really supportive of adding a couple additional roles in the last year. And it's great to see all the things you've been able to check off a list. Not a lot of people walk into education and feel like they check off all the things on their list for the year. So that's great. The subscription costs was also on my list, and I think when we think about the ongoing, we often think about technology as a one-time, and so we're going to do one-time expenses. But in fact, this is a little more analogous to when we have to add a head count, and we're going to keep the head count, right? Because it's also going to go up every year. I would love to assume they'll all keep their prices flat, but they won't. And so I think that's just important for us to be thinking about as we move. And you're right, it does add predictability, but it also means that we can't just 1 year fund technology and the next year not fund technology and do the seesaw that historically I think we've like other school districts, I'm sure, have been. It's an area where you cannot do 1 year, but do if you can. I guess one question and then sort of a comment. really excited about the open architects idea of pulling all the academic data together. When we say we want to be data driven, that doesn't just mean looking at like one set of data in isolation from all these other 5 sets of data that you have for young people. But I guess I'm just wondering and thinking more of the hat that I wear professionally. You need both the systems for the data, but then you also need the individuals who understand the analytics and can run the models. And so I would imagine that doesn't sit in your group, or is that another something we need to be thinking about? Because having the platform that pulls it all together is one thing. Then you have to have the humans that understand what are the outputs there. And so how are we thinking about that, or does that live in another part of the district's budget in some other way, or it's an area for growth?
Yes.
Right?
So this is a collaborative project with curriculum and my department.
Okay.
Because we'll definitely be the ones who will be connecting all the systems, making sure that everything is flowing. We do have a data manager role currently. So that person or that role is the person I think will be responsible for making sure that everyone understands the data, make sure they understand where it's coming from, make sure they can find the answer to the question they're looking for. So a big shift in the system. It's not just clicking and just looking at it. Oh, this looks great. You're going in with a question saying, I wanted to know all my 3rd graders who are failing ELA and also failing MCAS, right? And then we can drill down, and the system is really great at that, to be able to get to those answers, quickly, as opposed to trying to flip through different data sources, trying to get to that.
So that's sort of.
If I can add,
Yeah.
Ms. Heffernan, there's been an opportunity at a recent district leadership team meeting where Kadian presented and district leaders were had a chance to sort of experience it for the first time. Some had already been using it in different ways. And I think that it is kind of a joint project in the sense between Ms. Clowder and Mr. Phillips and the data team he has, but also leaders, whether those are principals or assistant principals. And I think that I'm trying to recall, because it was a recent meeting, and I'm trying to remember what the context was, but was talking, I think it was actually when Ms. Manos was presenting around and talking about the assistant principal had data up on the screen already, and that's an example of how, already we're starting to see some benefits from it, although it's very early. It will require some training and some professional development for the leadership team, and then eventually for teachers to be able to access it and do things with it. But at the same time, with the IT data team being able to answer questions, if someone can't intuitively find the answer, or maybe something doesn't exist, but and there have been a vendor that's been very responsive, like, hey, we have this data, but we want these things put together, and that's what Open Architects eventually does as a business. They found a nice niche in Massachusetts and beyond public education, so we're really pleased about bringing that tool on board.
Yeah, I certainly was asking the questions really because I think it's so critical that we do it, and saying we're being data driven, but not having our data sets sort of not necessarily talk to each other, but having us be able to extract and draw some conclusions, right? So I'm thrilled about that, Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Phillips. That's great. I think my sort of comment just for all of us is that I also agree the budget request is pretty modest of $41,000. It's a 5.64, so that's like when we think big picture for the whole budget, we're trying to often keep our budgets closer to the 4. Again, your budget's only $720,000 in a pretty significantly sized budget for the district. But for my colleagues, I just did a little quick math, and if we funded all of the things on the list and we thought all the things were important, even if we need to always prioritize, because we don't get to live in the world where we get everything, and we funded all of those, that would be a 51% increase, right? And none of them on the list sound like bad ideas, right? None of them sound superfluous, or, if you can't use the classroom projectors in 2 of our buildings, that's gonna really mess up the staff, right, in their day and how they currently deliver things. So, as we work really hard to make sure we maintain a budget, that the constraints of what that means, and that extra 325 things that are not funded, and maybe some of them are one time and don't follow the model we were just talking about. I appreciate that, but would be a pretty significant one-year line item increase as we are trying to manage across a whole district. And again, I can't look at any of these and say, you should fix the door at the high school if the door of the high school needs fixing and an electronic lock system. Of course we should do that, right? So these do seem like smart investments, and hopefully we'll be able to find some other ways. Unfortunately, as a district, we have a tendency to kind of get scrappy and have to find other ways to get some things funded that maybe seem pretty fundamental to this. So I'm certainly supportive of the request, and would love to be in a position to be more generous. This is the point I'm making, because I think we need to keep advancing, and this is an area where I don't expect our growth to be able to be held at that lower inflationary level, just because we're more and more and more, as you were saying, Mr. more and more dependent, right, in every way. So from building security all the way, and the cybersecurity threats. I'm sorry we're keeping you up at night. I'm sure we're not paying you sufficiently for all the anxiety, but it's true, right? We don't want to be a Fall River. We don't want to be one of these schools in the news, and that does require us being more proactive. So thank you, and we're really glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and welcome to Shrewsbury Public Schools. Mr. Phillips, really happy to have you on board. This is just a great presentation. I count about 18, 19 staff serving 7,000 students and staff, which is pretty phenomenal. And I mean, as we said, technology touches everything we do. And I think investments that were made last year, we're seeing them pay off. I mean, as I look at all of the new projects that have been addressed this year, I think of what Brian must have had in his back pocket. I mean, there are a lot. There's 8 pretty significant projects on that list, and it looks like they'll all be completed by the end of the year, which is just outstanding. You mentioned cybersecurity, and I couldn't help but notice the rapid response required, and I'm in a world of like my professional life and e-commerce, I hear rapid response, and it's like all hands on deck. Is that a process that we've implemented as part of like the cybersecurity focus? Are there people on call for that?
Yeah, so we're not necessarily on call, but we're constantly monitoring. So originally, I think we had it funded where it would be an on-call system, where one person would be dedicated to always be. We found that we were still constantly checking anyway, and one of us, that 10 minutes, right, if that one person is on call and they get sidetracked or anything, that could be the difference, right? So we're all always constantly connected, essentially. Not working, but if we see an alert come in, we'll try to quickly address it.
Sure, no, that makes sense. Yep, I do like the efficiencies too of bringing in interns, not only from Quinsigamond Community College, but our Maple and Maine students as well. I think it's a great idea. And then the Open Architects Data Warehouse, to me, I think is money well spent, right? The short and long-term benefits of that, the accessibility of data to our educators. I mean, we heard a little bit about that. Was it a couple weeks ago with Christina Manos' presentation about the accessibility of data to our entire staff, as opposed to depending on one person to produce reports. You can now open it up to everybody over time, which I think is just great to see the progress there. And then similar to what was mentioned in terms of what was not funded for FY26, I'd love to see that, like the absolute must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and honestly, I look at that list, and to me, we need all of it. But as Ms. Heffernan said, we don't live in that world. So,
Mr. Lindsay, can I just correct the record here for a second?
Yeah, sure.
You don't just have 7,000 customers. As a parent, I have a Parent Square account, I have a Power School account, I have a School Pay account, I have a login to athletic apps to know when those are happening. I'm not one of the parents who needs the translation services, but I know those are different. Right? So, you have a couple thousand additional, easy. I will say sometimes my spouse doesn't always log into all of those or gets logged out, and so I hold it. But for many of them, you have multiple adults also, all of whom also expect our school system to respond when there's a problem, right? And even if it's a third-party problem, the Power School couldn't be a better example. I'm sure you were flooded with questions. So I just want to take your gambit is even larger and deserves attention, because I get logged out and I have password reset problems and all the other problems that you have for the staff, just as a parent.
Yeah, it definitely extends to families. I've been there many times. So no, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing, and a big thank you to your team as well.
Yeah. No, kudos to the team. I think a lot of this wouldn't be possible without them. It's been a pleasure working with that team, and really the entire Shrewsbury staff since I've been there. It's definitely been a great reception for sure.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. Sawyer, further comments?
Let me add that we're thrilled to have Katie on board as our director of IT. He came highly, highly recommended, but he's exceeded expectations throughout the year already, and really has fit in seamlessly in terms of really keeping the team on track. It's been a thriving team for a long time, working closely with Brian, and for us to be able to maintain and keep Ryan on the team in a new role was really, and you can see what the results are. That was a great investment that you supported last year, as well as the additional network manager for all the reasons that have been stated around cybersecurity in particular. Certainly, I'll work with Katie and to get a list, sort of prioritized list that we'll send along to you under separate cover. And certainly, I know Mr. Girardi works closely with Mr. Phillips as well in terms of identifying opportunities. Traditionally, as we come to the end of a fiscal year, if there's some money, additional funds that might be available that are beyond what we projected, oftentimes those are the places we'll go to. What can we do to make an investment that we know is going to be needed regardless, and we can use some of those available funds. We'll continue to look at that. You'll hear a little bit later in this meeting, we're a little tighter this year than we have been in past years, so I'm not sure what those opportunities might be, but we'll be looking for whatever those funding sources could be to move the needle on those things. And certainly, some of it might be a preview to the FY27 budget cycle in terms of some things we might have to do. But I know that Katie and his team are really on top of it, and anything that's mission critical, we know he's going to make sure he brings forward so that we can respond as we need to make sure that the system runs effectively, because students and educators and families are counting on it to do so. So again, really appreciate the work that you've done. I've enjoyed working with you. You'll be back in a couple of weeks with the report on artificial intelligence, which we've appreciated his work and his leadership there as well. But thanks for the report, and we appreciate all the efforts.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is under Finance and Operations. It's FY26 final school department appropriated budget recommendation. It'll be a presentation, and we will vote on this final presentation. So Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Girardi presented the superintendent's initial recommendation for FY26 school department budget at a meeting on February 12th. Since that time, the school district has made updated cost projections, and updates have been made based on these and ongoing discussions as part of the budget development process. Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Girardi is here to provide an updated recommendation for a budget plan for the school department appropriated budget for FY26, which the school committee will be asked to vote on tonight. With that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Sawyer and Mr. Girardi.
Thank you, Mr. Wensky. As you can see on the title screen here and then the next slide, this is a recommendation for a $3.72 million increase over our current budget, which would be a total of about $90.33 million. That's a 4.30% increase over our current town appropriated budget. That is the recommendation that Town Manager Kevin Mizikar made under the context of the ongoing agreement between the school committee and the select board in terms of available revenue and where that slots our ability to sustain school department programming and personnel, which again is a thanks to the decision by the voters of Shrewsbury back in 2021 to support the override model through a positive vote. Go to the next slide. Chris is going to go through a few slides here about class sizes and some data that show the stability that we have. And then we'll talk a little bit about what some of the small number of new investments we're making under this budget plan, and how especially that's connected to some of our funding from the state around circuit breaker in particular. And then we'll wrap up with a summary, including some other cost pressure points such as transportation. But I'll turn it over to Chris to talk a little bit about class sizes and enrollment projections for the next school year.
Thank you. So one place that we continue to look at following the February initial budget is to see if our student enrollment is still projecting to what we projected back in February. I'm happy to say that it is, and that our elementary school class sizes are remaining within the school committee or below the school committee guidelines at this time. One area that we were looking closely at was our kindergarten numbers. We did open our kindergarten registrations early this year by a few weeks, just to try and get ahead of the game a little bit, so that by the time we're making our final presentation, we felt like we'd have as good of numbers as we could at this time of year. Something that we do is we have historical, over the past few years, we have the number of registrations that come in April, that come in May, because it's not everyone at once, and we have our final numbers in May for the following September So we're continuing to make projections around this, but our kindergarten numbers are trending historically as they would in April, as we are actually March and April, as we're working towards this final recommendation. But all things are showing that what we presented in February around the number of sections that we need at each school is on target. Similarly, our middle school projections are the same. These tend to be a little bit more stable because they tend to be students that we can anticipate move-ins, but for the most part, these are schools in which we have a number of sections per grade level where it allows us to be a little bit more confident with the number of sections we can offer based on anticipated students. We do look at things that have evolved over time, like St. John's opening middle school sections in grades 7 and 8 and see how that impact is. We do put some projections in that account for that, and these projections do show that. And again, our grades 5 through 8 sections currently are within guidelines. The high school, again, it's a bit of a different animal in that we're not looking at sections as far as drivers for staff. This is really where programming is impacted, and the number of classrooms we have and the number of students who come to us kind of dictate to us what we are able to do around programming. We are projecting 1,899 students at the high school for next year. This is a model used from the McKibben report in 2022. They projected 1,900 students, so they were off by 1. We'll have to let them know that. But it's been a pretty accurate model to use, at least in early years for us, and it continues to show that we are over capacity. We continue to be over capacity. We're not projecting to be within capacity as far out as the report shows. And this is something that Mr. Bizidlo, his team over at the high school, that they spend a lot of time scheduling their sections and their offerings, albeit not as much as they would want to do sometimes, to account for the students, the enrollment at the high school. And this is our first time showing our preschool model following the vote to bring aboard 2 full-day preschool sessions at Beal School. And this shows that we have 192 projected preschool students in 16 sections. That brings us to 12 students per section, and this all falls within state regulations as projected by Ms. Nichols and her team.
So this next slide shows the few additions that we're recommending for the budget. The first, an ELC coordinator. That's our program for students with disabilities, typically on the autism spectrum or similar. That population of students is going to increase from 14 to 23 students next year at Sherwood. We need to add another section, essentially another coordinator to provide that programming for those students, which is essentially a mandated service. An adjustment counselor at Coolidge based on the number of students requiring counseling support there also needs to be added, and we've actually added the person. We've had a maternity leave there, and we're able to bring the person on board so that that person will already have been working at Coolidge for a number of months this school year and will roll into next school year as well as a result of that situation. But those additional dollars will be added to the next fiscal year budget to bring that person on board as a second adjustment counselor. We also have an English language education teacher. Currently, there's a long-term substitute teacher. You heard that in the report from Ms. Manos and Ms. Willender at a previous meeting. But we need to bring that position in on a more permanent basis, just based on the population of students that we're sustaining that need mandated services at Beal in English language education. A paraeducator position in the RISE program, again, super successful program we're really proud of. The number of students that we will be in that post-graduation up to age 22 program next year will go from 22 students to 26 students. So we need that additional paraeducator to run that mandated programming for those students. And then finally, this is the only shift from a budget source that is no longer going to be available. This was the last part of our federal COVID funding through the ESSER 3 grant. We added about 40 hours of Literacy tutor support, we think it's been very valuable. We still see the need for it. So moving that $57,000 into the appropriated budget for next year, we think is a wise investment and certainly a very important strategic priority for the district. So all told, that is an addition of 4 FTE plus those continued hours of tutor support to bring those on board, total of a little over $364,000. This next slide just shows you the total number of students that we are expecting to educate out of district for special education placements next year. That number, as of the most recent estimate of April 4th that Ms. Belcito and Ms. Bartlett, their department, has provided, we're looking at 51 students. If we did not have the RISE program in place, that number would be 77 students. So that's, those were students who previously would have had to go to an out-of-district placement, but that's, our RISE program's an in-district placement that is cost-effective. So that number has moderated a bit, and that translates into a slightly lower projection than we had when we presented to you in February. Our total amount of tuition for out-of-district special education, go back one slide, Chris, thank you, is just over $7.55 million. And so it's about $73,000 less than what we projected in February. Of that, over $5.1 million will be funded through the state funding through Circuit Breaker. It's a substantial number. That's an incredibly important state resource for us. The other $2.4 million plus will be funded through this appropriated budget that's funded for the school department through town meeting. This next slide, I know there's a lot of detail on it. It's more just to give you the sense of this. I know that the school committee has seen this before. This is in all the budget packets. It's updated with the most recent information from the special education department. In essence, I think what's important to note is that, and you can see there's actually, you can see the difference in the fourth column there between what we brought to you in February and what our projection is now. So the good news is that we are expecting to receive more circuit breaker reimbursement next year than we were projecting back in February. That was a very conservative estimate. The April estimate's actually based on more actual data that we submit to the state and get an early read on. So we're confident in that. It also has to do with the pressure point that Mr. Jardy will speak to in a moment, which is special education transportation, because those costs rose even more this year than what we had originally projected, which we had actually projected to be substantial. The reimbursement next year will be greater as well. So there's some of that offset that's at play here. And so the difference is that we are going to be able to use slightly more circuit breaker funds, slightly less funds out of the appropriated budget, which enables us to make some other adjustments in that, which we'll speak to in a bit. And then also have about $225,000 more projected to be in the reserve at the completion of fiscal year 2026, a year plus from now. And so that's keeps us right just above that 50% threshold. Of note, there's the NA there. You can't really look at the difference because that's a percentage of a different number. There's a different numerator there based on what our projection was in. You can carry up to 100% of what you get in 1 year. So what we receive next year, you can't carry. It would be 50% of what we receive next year. We'd carry forward to the next year. That's the target we're at. But it's still $225,000 better than what we were projecting in February. So that's a good news story. And now Chris will talk a little bit about our transportation reimbursement for circuit breaker and then other transportation items.
So as Dr. Sawyer noted, special education out-of-district transportation costs are part of the circuit breaker formula. We typically budget around 57%, which has been the past few years' historical amount that we've received for transportation costs. This year we received 44%, which was less, and it is impacting our projections for this year around paying for our out-of-district transportation costs. So our actual cost for FY24 was just over $1 million, $1,017,541. We received just over $447,000 back. Our projections were closer to $580,000. The state, if they were able to, their formula would to fund up to 75% of it. So they're coming in less than what they would like to do, but it all depends upon the available revenue that they have to spread across the state for the special education transportation reimbursements. In FY25, we're still monitoring the costs for our out-of-district transportation given a new contract. And we're using a middle estimate of $1.458 million for our total costs for FY25. If we were, what we are doing is we're saying if we get 44% reimbursement back, which is a conservative number, but a number that we want to be careful that we're not overestimating again, we'd be looking at a $641,585 reimbursement for our FY25 costs. So that's the number that we have built into our circuit breaker formula as part of the reimbursement that we would receive from FY25. We're going to continue to monitor this number. We're hopeful that the estimate that we're making may be a little high. We're hoping that the reimbursement we get back next year may be a little bit more than what we're estimating, but at this time, there's just too many variables out there for us to feel confident in sitting on a higher number. So our guideline recommendation that has been in place in Shrewsbury for a number of years to really set ourselves as to what we think are good reserves to have at the end of the year. Our current planned use of circuit breaker would end FY26 at a little over $2.2 million. That puts us a little over the 50%, which is an adequate amount. Again, the 50.88% at the end of FY26. And as a percentage of the total operating budget for FY26, that's just about 2.5% of the total operating budget, which again is in the adequate range. Another piece that has evolved over the course of the budget cycle from February to now is that school committee did vote to approve the reduction of fees both for bus transportation and for athletics from $325 in athletics to $300, and the family cap, from representing that as well, and the bus fee from $320 to $300. And those 72,000 total dollars again are factored into or have been shifted into the appropriated budget to offset these fees.
So this last piece that has been in your packet is all of the major categories of the town appropriated budget. The bottom line is a 4.3% increase, which is aligned with the town manager's recommendation. You can see the column there, third from the left, what we proposed in the original budget back in February, which was at a 4.25% piece. This is $43,000 more in that orange line. And then most categories have not changed at all from our February recommendation. There are some increases. Mr. Wensky reported at the start of the meeting with a settlement with the Shrewsbury Education Association, our Unit A, teachers and nurses, professional educators. That number are projected to come in at about $138,000 more than what we had looked at in February. And then a little bit categories down from there, some additional impact of that contract where we'd see some more in the other wages category. That is offset by the additional $43,000 in the town manager's recommendation, and then the less use of the special education tuition out of this part of the budget, more out of the circuit breaker piece, which is we described earlier. So again, it's a stable budget. We find ourselves to be in a very fortunate place compared to many other school districts across the Commonwealth who are making significant cuts to personnel and programming next year. Again, thanks to the ongoing leadership of the boards, the school committee, and the convincing our community to increase the amount they spend through their property taxes in order to support stable budgets for our municipal departments and the school department. That is paying off incredibly well in terms of stability, being able to maintain all the work that we're doing during a time when we really need to have those resources to provide education for students in the current environment post-pandemic that we're in. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions the committee has, and we'd ask that you vote to recommend this budget to town meeting as the school department appropriation.
Great. Thank you very much for the presentation, colleagues. Questions or comments? Ms. Fritz?
And thank you for the update. And I think as I'm looking at the budget and the stability that we have has been something that is refreshing after years of really looking at it from what can we afford versus this is the revenue and making sure that we're setting our priorities to meet that. So I'm looking, when we have the presentation today from the students and looking at that budget initiative, and we had to have trade-offs because we felt that was an area where dollars had to go. So other things had to not be funded. And that is still what we do as a school department. It's what the municipal side has to do as well. It's stable, but we're still not adding fluff or anything, that shouldn't be there. So I think we're looking at the initiatives, and there's dividends being paid in educational services. And then just the IT piece that we just had, adding that position is actually helping, looking at areas of efficiency and ways to do things better or quicker. So I'm fully in support of this. I know it is a big number, but it is a large district, and we still remain very efficient and effective. After our DMG report, we've had that substantiated as well. So I'm fully in support of this, so thank you for your work.
Great. Ms. Boucher?
I'm also very supportive, and I'd like to thank Dr. Sawyer, Mr. Girardi, and the Finance Subcommittee for their work on this throughout many months of trying to get us to this place. I'm pleased to see that we can still maintain an adequate circuit breaker balance at 2.5% of our operating budget. I was pleased to see that we had a little bit more to add to that tonight. And I'm also very pleased that we are able to move the needle, although slightly, on the fees reduction on athletic fees and transportation fees. When the email went out from Ms. Yu this week or last week about the reminder to start having families sign up for buses, to see that number go down this year was refreshing. So. Yeah, I'm fully in support of this budget. Thank you for all your hard work.
Any more comments or questions? No? All right, well, thank you. Thank you both, Mr. Girardi, Dr. Sawyer, and your teams for all the work that's gone into this budget. I don't think people realize how long we go through this process, dating back to October, really, when the subcommittees start to meet and the workshops. Big thank you as well to my colleagues for all the time, the feedback. Certainly our finance subcommittee with Ms. Fritz and Ms. Heffernan. And we presented our budget development priorities on our November 6th meeting, right? So it's 5 to 6 months. It's a long process. So I appreciate the work that's gone into it. We continue to work within the guidelines of the May 2021 override agreement between the Select Board and School Committee, and we're very thankful for the residents of the community for supporting that model. It's provided predictability, sustainability, things that we didn't have prior to May 2021. So we're very thankful for that. It's great to see, too, in particular, in the RISE program, showing that return on investment, which is just an outstanding program, and I do support this recommendation as a result. And the key investments, I think, are important to note, not only aligning with our strategic priorities, but with mandated positions that we need to fill. And it's also nice to, as Ms. Boucher said, be able to have a position where we can lower fees. I don't think we've done that ever, right? And we will continue to look at ways that we can do that moving forward. But it's nice, it feels good to be able to at least ease the burden on families who are paying fees for buses and sports. And we're very fortunate, as Dr. Sawyer said, to be in this position. You watch the news today, you see the headlines. There are districts within the state that aren't as fortunate. They're cutting programs, they're cutting staff, and in some cases, they're doing it even if they pass an override, right? Shrewsbury is different. As Ms. Fritz said, too, $90 million, sounds like a lot, but when you realize we're the 29th largest school district out of 316 in the state, and we're spending in the bottom 15th percentile, that's, in terms of cost per pupil, it's significant. When you look at the data, we're doing some really good work in this district. So thank you very much. Any further comments?
Just Mr. Wentz, real quick, you can go back one slide. I know I did. I skipped over this last one, but just to emphasize again, this is a plan. And, our budget's dynamic. And, I mean, now, given the scope and the size of our district and the work that happens every day to serve the needs of almost 6,000 kids, it's actually remarkably stable. Most of it's personnel, of course, who are there throughout the year and year to year, thankfully. There's other elements, just like you heard about from Mr. Phillips around technology. Certainly you heard in the report from Ms. Belcito. We know that out-of-district tuition costs are one of the most volatile areas that we have. A student moving in from out of state and an out-of-district placement can immediately put very significant pressure, hence needing to have a healthy balance in that circuit breaker reserve as well. But we continue, and I appreciate the work that Mr. Girardi continues to do around monitoring the budget. You'll hear about this year's update in a moment, and in terms of our current budget, and making sure that where there are very modest things that happen during the year where we can pivot to fund something that becomes a need, or, and the last bullet there, what are efficiencies we can realize? The leadership team is constantly looking at, are there things that we're doing where we can do that spending in a more efficient way? Is there something that's not needed because we want to fund something different that's more aligned with our strategic priorities? That work happens throughout the year. It's not a static thing that just ends at town meeting and then never changes until the next year. So again, our hope is that. Other factors, obviously people have been asking me, what about federal funding? Another reason why to have this healthy reserve. If federal funding does get cut back for some reason, we need to be able to pivot and do something different, especially for the things that funds are typically mandated services. So, the landscape is going to be interesting in the coming months and year, but I think we're very well positioned and in a stable place right now, which again, I'm very grateful for.
Mr. Wensky, could I Dr. Sawyer, you've just sort of queued up for me. I feel like we've been talking about this for a little while, so I was going to try to stay silent and let us end the meeting on time. But I think it's important to talk about potential efficiencies. And I just wanted to acknowledge there are a couple ways that people can use that term to mean a few different things. And while I think it's important that we, as any institution anywhere across the globe, needs to look at, can you deliver things with a little more value? It bears repeating what Mr. Wensky, you just said, that we spend in the bottom 15% of the state. And we know, and we have outcomes in the top 15%. So we are an incredibly efficient district. And yet in any program, we should look within that program and ask, is there a way to reduce transportation costs? There's a way, but writ large, this district is incredibly efficient. And so I don't want people to misconstrue that last bullet to think there's lots of inefficiency and waste here. I don't think that's fair at all either, right? And so, I also just want to maybe for myself say, I wouldn't characterize our reserve as healthy. It's not. It's at 50% of what it could be. And so we have had to make a choice. And just a couple years ago, we were at 75%, right? That was not that long ago. And we've had to dip in a couple more $1 million to kind of keep things going and keep them and am I happy about the literacy investments? Absolutely. Am I happy about the mental health investments? Absolutely. But we're not able to put away as much for the rainy day. And I think we're in a lot more volatile times, Dr. Sawyer. I completely agree with you. Whether what happens federally, whether what that means to our contracts, whether, I was just thinking about where does Mr. Phillips source a lot of the materials that we want to buy for technology? What countries are they coming from? How is that going to impact costs? And so, there is a lot of risk here. And while we've been able to put some away, I don't think it's healthy. And I think if we were running our own homes, we'd say we should have a little more in savings because we're running into risky times. And certainly today's market, for anybody who's paid attention, it's a volatile time. So I'm very happy with the budget that we have, and I'm completely agree with you, Mr. Wensky, that I am glad we're not in many of the other communities that are in much worse shape. But we have made a smart choice in this community that I think we have to keep making. Every time we have to go to the ballot box and say, are we going to fund and override again and have the stabilization agreement and do those things so that we can be at a level and consistent place and make smart investments? And so, I'm glad we're there, but we need to continually show the voters, ask the voters, is this a good idea? And I think the DMG report from our last few meetings is another testament to we are a really efficient district and that sort of deserves, we think, their vote the next time it comes up at the ballot box. So certainly and hugely in support of this budget and the relationship that we have with the select board and town manager's office to be where we are today. But I just want to be careful we're not too rosy, that there are some real potential risks that we have to keep paying attention to. Thank you.
Absolutely. Further questions or comments? Right, we do need to vote, so therefore I need a motion that the school committee vote to recommend a fiscal year 2026 town appropriated school department budget of $90,339,987 as presented for town meeting approval.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please do so by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, continuing on with our next item under Finance and Operations is the FY25 budget update with Mr. Girardi. So he's going to give us the current status of the FY25 budget, and the report is enclosed in our packets. Back to you, Mr. Girardi.
Great, thank you. You stick
I'm
around?
just going to stay, I'm going
All
to,
right.
this is the last report, right? So I'm going to stay here if that's okay.
All right, thank you. Let me shift my brain to this fiscal year. So as we do at different points during the fiscal year, we come with some budget updates as to where things are at this point in time, right? And it's a point in time snapshot of where we are. But to begin, our original budget for this year was $86,515,519, which was appropriated at the May 20th, 2024 town meeting. In November of 2024, there was a special town meeting, and an additional $100,000 was appropriated to the school department to fund electrical and security upgrades in school buildings. So in total, the new total FY25 appropriated budget is $86,615,519. This budget review was conducted on March 18th, 2025, 2 weeks back, and this was 75% of the way through our fiscal year and 70% into the school year, and that's based on the number of school days. So again, this is a snapshot in time. It's important to know that there's variables that will continue to evolve over the balance of the year. As we do draw closer to the end of the fiscal year, we have areas that do firm up much, that we can make more calculated estimates because we know there's going to be less spending in those areas just based on what those categories entail. We do have some that still remain volatile, and there's variables that come into play through the end of the school year, such as substitute teachers and things that we'll continue to keep an eye on. But as we get closer, we feel more confident where we're going to end the year. And we do believe that we're going to end the year fully expending the FY25 budget, and we'll speak to what that is in this presentation. Based on where we are mid-March, what we are projecting, big picture is a 1/3 of a 1% positive variance of about $262,789, or 0.3% of the budget. And we consider this to be stable. How we look at this is we look at our different budgeting categories. So we have our A categories, which is our staffing, our B categories, which are our transportation, our C category is our tuitions, and our D category is equipment, materials, contracted services, professional development. In our A categories, we're projecting slightly under in many of these categories. Our A4 category, which is our secretaries, technology, and other non-represented staff. This is an area where we did move some staffing from a grant funding. We were paying them out of a grant fund. We moved them into the general fund to help us support paying costs of some out-of-district transportation. So that was intentional to move that, to move some FTE into that category there. We are trending, the dollar amounts, they're pretty much on par with what our expectations were as we're moving towards the end of the school year. So we consider these to be, trending slightly over, but really approaching our target for the end of the fiscal year. Our substitutes, daily, long-term, and sub-nurses, again, we're slightly under here. There are some factors that we do build in for some end-of-the-year things. We look at, we have a historical kind of pace as to how substitutes are used over the course of the year. we do anticipate some more usage towards the end of the year, but things like our long-term sub numbers are becoming more stable, and we're able to anticipate what those end-of-the-year costs are going to be a little bit more consistently. Our B categories are our transportation categories. Again, our regular education and voc transportation, that's trending right on pace with what we budgeted. Our special education transportation, that's the area where we are putting more resources into to make sure that we have the funds to support them, given just some volatility with that contract that we just need to be careful for. So we are being conservative with the funds that we're holding for special education transportation, just to make sure that our projections are actuals trending through June of 25. Our net special education tuitions, the way that we do budget this is that we plan on expending all funds that are in that category. And if there were savings, the $70,000 worth of savings that we're looking at this year, those are going to be adjusted, whether through circuit breaker or as a carrying those costs forward into next year. And then our D categories, those tend to be the consumables that we have a lot of things that are encumbered in those areas. Then we have some things that we know are anticipated costs that we have identified, and we do anticipate that our D category is going to be expensed fully by the end of the school year. So our circuit breaker, we began FY25 with a fund balance of just over $2.6 million. It's a little bit higher than what we had budgeted, but we had some movement where we're able to fund our circuit breaker. So it's a 75.3% of the total maximum allowable amount to carry forward from FY24. Again, we're projecting to be $73,180 under budget, but we'll continue to monitor this. There are still students who may go out of district that are going to bring on some costs, that could spend this number down pretty quickly. So we'll continue to monitor that, and we'll balance that out with the balance of the FY25 budget. So just as in conclusion, this is again just a quick overview. Looking at the total recap sheet, it's showing that we're projecting to land the year $262,789 under the total appropriated budget. That's just under it's 0.3% is the variance. This is the number. If you look in the FY26 budget, this is the carry forward number that we're anticipating to bring to carry forward in circuit breaker through next year. So having said that, we will fully expend our FY25 general fund appropriation. We feel confident that we're going to land the year at a zero balance.
Great. Awesome, great. Thank you so much for the report. Yeah, colleagues, questions, comments? Ms. Heffernan?
Just one question. On the fiscal year budget chart at the end of your report, can you just remind me why that D2 category, educational contracted services, is coming in about almost 10% under budget? Is that a well, maybe why is that? I won't
Sure.
speculate.
In looking at it, what we've had experienced in the past years is we've been understaffed with things like our school psychologists, where we've had to outsource a lot of the testing. We've been able to bring a little bit more of that back in.
Okay.
It's not a huge dollar amount. That testing can be pretty expensive pretty quick. So any savings there is a good thing.
Right.
We're continuing to monitor that because I wish it were a linear path. It isn't, but at least this year we're coming in on the good.
Okay.
Depending on what resources we have in-house and the cost of the testing and those types of things out of house could really fluctuate this number pretty dramatically.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Great. No, thank you for the report. Appreciate Appreciate it. Dr. Cerny, further comments?
No, I just appreciate that we're on target, and again, Mr. Girardi and his team do a good job monitoring where we're at, and the folks out in the field know that, as we come down the stretch, we have to be careful of making sure where we're within our bounds, and where we are at the end of the year. If we have an opportunity, like some of the things Mr. Phillips presented, to make a few modest investments, we'll do that if there's availability, but otherwise, we're on target to be able to carry through circuit breaker those savings over to the next year.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. The minutes from the school committee meeting held on March 26th and the school committee workshop held on April 2nd have been provided to us under separate cover. Colleagues, any questions or revisions, changes? No? There being none, they will be accepted as written. We do need to go into executive session tonight, therefore I need to request a motion to adjourn into executive session, A, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, open meeting law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association, Units A and or B, Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association and or Cafeteria Workers Association, and C, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, non-union clerical and support staff and or administrators. Purpose 2 and D, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements, federal and Massachusetts state record laws. Purpose 7, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and return to open session only for the purpose of addressing or of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote is required. Ms. Fritz?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Sharifapour?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.